me open my notes here.
Oh, hello, Andrei. You are from Portugal and you want to move to Switzerland and you have some questions about it, right?
That's correct, yes.
All right.
Hi.
So first, so you send me the list of questions in an email, so I'm just going to read the question and then answer it afterwards. So your first one that you asked was, moving to Switzerland without a computer science degree, is it doable or is it mental? Should I expect a pay cut? Can experience have an advantage over a bachelor's degree? So basically, it is very similar to everywhere else. I think even it's less bureaucratic and less the degree requirements, for instance, lower than in Germany. Like I know, for example, the CTO of a very, very famous private bank that is international, and this person has no degree. He has a apprenticeship. He started as a system something guy at this bank, and then he worked his level up. Now he's the main technical person in the whole Switzerland branch. This is impossible in Germany, or this was impossible in Germany already 20, 30 years ago. So Switzerland is generally actually even less, let's say, addicted to seeing a degree, because we have the apprenticeship model. Germany has it too, but in Switzerland it's just much more prevalent still. So much less people study, whereas in the rest of Europe I see for everything you need a bachelor's, master's degree. So generally, over all fields, I would say actually the tendency to look for a CS for a degree is less, and in computer science, I think it's even more or less, because computer science is just such a field where you need like really practical skills, and you can learn it really well in an apprenticeship model. We have even it's called like Informatik Maturitätsmittelschule. It's like kind of like high school extra for IT, and people who come out of that are even more respected. Of course, it's like it is like a thing on top of people that study at the ETH or some other university here that's like famous, and you have like another thing on top. It's not like it's kind of a must. The work experience definitely overshadows the CS degree. So like you yourself, I mean, you code around since 6 years, I believe, it overshadows it definitely. Okay. So with 6 years of experience, people more look, okay, what did you do in the last 2 years?
Okay.
So that is the situation regarding the degree. So actually less bureaucratic and less looking for the paper. Although I must say some jobs, I mean, companies that, let's say lease you out or let's say, lease you out to banks or for projects.
Consultancy jobs.
Exactly. There is a little bit the tendency to say, okay, yeah, we have like 5 developers and 3 of them have like a master's degree, or they have even a PhD. So it's like 300 francs more per day or something like that, because the client is a little bit not so, sorry?
That happens a lot here in Portugal as well.
As well, I see.
Another situation, yeah.
So there is a little bit of that, but the general tendency, luckily, is not in this direction.
Okay, great.
With your experience working in the recruitment area, what would you say? Would you say that the Swiss companies are looking for software engineers prefer hiring full stack or like expert roles? This is what you wanted to ask with this one. So you mean generalist versus specialist?
Yeah, full stack versus experts.
It's not.
I know it's not an exact science. It depends on the job itself.
Yeah.
But is there like a tendency? Would you say?
I wouldn't say it's different from any other place. Companies look for basically this T-shaped individuals who are many things where you're really good at or really understand, and then one thing you're really, really good. For example, you're really good at backend Java, but you also know JavaScript. You also know a little bit of React, Angular, Vue, how they look. You know, like how to DevOps. You know, like other things. You know, maybe a little bit of UX even. So it's like really this T-shaped personality is generally what I see companies overall looking for. And yeah, in the web, it's kind of, if you apply as a backend, like generally, I would say that some sort of general knowledge is more and more required generally overall in the IT let's say community in the world. Switzerland doesn't really have here a certain like focus. It's more again about the company. If it's like a smaller agency where you have to do everything, it's better to be like a generalist. If it's a bigger company where it's like, okay, we need like some SAP developer, then generally, then definitely it's like a specialist role, right? If you're like, okay, you don't need to do this super proprietary technology, then you don't need to know anything else. You just need to know this proprietary technology. But in technologies that are more like open source and generally like available and used, which is the web world in general, there it's like less of that.
Okay.
Should this, is this fine or?
Yeah, that answers it. Yeah, thanks.
Should a CV be written in the same language as the job advert? That's a good question. So here in Switzerland, you have like many job ads in German, but still actually they hire English speakers. And sometimes they write, okay, yeah, you should speak German, but actually it's not clear how much. And it's very common actually to, even for German speaking candidates, for a German speaking role written in German, to apply in English. So generally it is not, unless the company is extremely conservative, but even that I would say I have not really seen even in very conservative companies that there is any problem with an English CV. So because everyone has the level of English that is enough to read the CV, which is, I mean, not the most complicated text in the world. It basically always says like, okay, I worked here, I did this. So the level of English among the Swiss is extremely high. So therefore, even with German-speaking candidates, they sometimes write only an English-speaking CV because then they can optimize that and send it like to both German-speaking companies and English-speaking companies. But if they would write it in German, then they would always have to duplicate it to the English one. So it's very let's say okay to have an English CV. And yeah, the question is, if you see a German job advert, then don't be like afraid to really maybe look, okay, maybe it's really possible to work there without German. And for developers, generally the level of German is actually, the requirements not so high. So basically you need just to understand. So the first level so there's different levels. The first level, obviously you cannot speak anything, and then you will get some jobs, but around half of the market is not accessible to you, unfortunately. Because really because they don't, like, people don't want to switch in a meeting like 10 people and you're there, and only because of that the client or everyone has to switch. So basically the really first level that counts is like, okay, I can understand German, but I don't necessarily can answer because I don't like speak that well. That already is actually like not so hard to reach, and almost like 80% of the value, right? To like, let's say here is native German speaker, here is not speaking at all, and already understanding is already like really a lot of the value, because then everybody else can just speak German, and then you just answer in English and everybody will understand, so there's no issue with
so in that regard, follow-up question, as you said, that even if I just understood the German and I was being asked a question, I could easily reply in English and there would be no problem, right? It's not stigmatized or something.
Yeah, exactly. So this, like, for developers, it's like exactly, this is already, if you can of course answer, then it's like the second. So basically then it's like, if you can answer and you have some mistakes, or let's say you have a strong dialect, which everybody will have who learns German after puberty or learns any language after puberty, that already doesn't really matter that much. So like, the difference between somebody who learned German later and speaks it really not well and a native speaker, like, then it's really more, they look, okay, who programs better, because your job is not to sell stuff or like speak. I mean, and often actually the documentation is in English. So even in very traditional companies, the code comments or the code documentation is anyway written in English for some reason. I think just because English is much shorter. Also, if you copy paste stuff from the internet, it's often English. So that's why actually the code documentation is very, very often in English. So that will be the language issue thingy.
Right.
CV improvement checklist.
Can we leave that for the end?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a follow-up question.
Exactly. So the one you sent last, and we put it here because it relates. I'm not a German speaker. My personal decision, do you think it would be a good idea for me to move to Germany where I'd have a little more leeway to use English in the beginning, become better in German over time, and only then try Switzerland? So your question here is basically, okay, you're assuming that in Germany you need less German. So I would say actually that doesn't seem to be the case, because I think in Zurich, in Geneva, in Basel, for sure, those three cities, it's actually, I think, much more common to hear English than in most cities in Germany, with slightly the exception of Berlin. So it's the Swiss, because I mean, Germany is like German speaking, that's it, 80 million people. But here in Switzerland, we are like 8 million people, and like 1/3 speaks German, 1/3 speaks French, or 1/3, roughly a little bit less, speaks Italian, and then Retro-Romanish, another like small language group. So we already used to like different languages, and everything in like 4 languages, everything in the supermarket and so on. So there are people here who live like for 20 years, they don't speak like 5 words in German. So it's much more actually, and like, you know, people who work at banks and so on, they could afford like a German school, but but they just are a bit lazy about languages. So they just, and everybody, the thing also, everybody replies to you immediately in very good English. So then of course it's extremely hard to like force other people to actually speak German to you. So I would say Switzerland is more easy with English only than Germany. In general. And then
just add to that, I only said that I only assumed it would be a little bit easier to use English in Germany, because I was thinking of Berlin and why they say that it's a tech capital and stuff like that. So I would assume I'd be more at ease there. But if you say that's not really the case, well, then I understand why, of course.
Yeah, there are a lot of startups in Berlin, and of course they don't care about the German. But then again, the salaries are not the greatest, although they are going up. But the living costs are going up as well. If you really check Berlin, it's not. It has the reputation of to be like super cheap, but it's actually not that super cheap anymore. So
the taxes are not that great either.
I think even some, because of that, exactly, and other things. So I've heard even some time ago, somebody hired developers in Berlin and not in Warsaw, because in Warsaw the developers were more expensive. So draw your own conclusion.
Yeah.
But like the market is I mean, you can get a good, probably there also something where you make a lot, because there are like just so many companies, so it's possibly possible. However, the cost is not so low anymore as people think. From what I hear from people who live there.
That's an eye opener. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Alrighty. And then you write, I believe that I have only one disadvantage because of instead of 2. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I was saying that I'd have only one disadvantage, which was not having a degree, because I thought that was more important than actually speaking German.
I see.
So that's why I said that I'd only have the language disadvantage. But I'm very motivated to actually learn the language. I've been looking around here at language centers for German. So I had the intentions of moving out to Switzerland probably next year, after things I guess settle down a little bit more with COVID.
Right.
And then try my best to see something abroad.
All right.
That's why I said that about the language.
Alrighty. Now we have actually many Portuguese people here in different domains, like everything, all kinds of industries. Actually, there's some Portuguese, let's say, how to call exclave or community. Yeah, definitely a Portuguese community in Zurich.
Mind you, though, that I'm not natural Portuguese. I was born in the Eastern Europe.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's switch to your CV, because you had questions about that too. So that's the CV, and you basically asked a couple of things about the duration, I believe. So the first question was specify the duration and the stay. yeah, so basically, right now you have, like, for example, December 2017 until present. For recruiters that sometimes need to look at like 200 CVs a day, like at least screen them, it's really pleasant to include, like, in this case, like, it would be what, three years and some months, and just the count. So basically, then I or anybody else immediately sees the duration where you have been.
Yeah.
For example, yeah, here it's like exactly 1 year, but often, first of all, it's good that you added the months. So many people don't put it, so then it's not clear when actually the year, the WAC time started, and 1 year like difference can be quite huge. Yeah. So you did it quite well, but if you want to make it a little better, you can put like 1 year, like 3 years and X months and so on.
Yeah.
Then a small detail, add the date of the birth or not. So that's a good question. I mean, because definitely there could be immediately, like, let's say, age discrimination, both in your, like, let's say, actually it can be, yeah. I mean, many people do it because it's kind of quite common in Switzerland to put it, but it can be like kind of, of course, a negative thing for you, because then if you're like young, then they can always say, oh, why this person wants so much money? He's so young. It's a bit stupid because, like, of course, the company pays you not for your, let's say, age, but like how much actually work you've done in the past, so how good you are. But the thing is, like, programmer careers are so hard to assess because, like, yeah, you worked for, like, in your case, like, since 2014, okay, but still, it's like, I don't know all these companies, and even if I would know, I don't know the teams, so I don't know exactly, was it like, really like 6 years of super development from like junior to like super hardcore .NET crack, or did you like do the same thing like for 6 years? So basically then people rely on proxies and say, okay, yeah, this person is only like 25, so we pay this person like this kind of money. It's a really, this is kind of a Swiss and German thing, I would say, this, let's say, age discrimination. But it goes also in the positive way. Like, people who are older, they would include like the fact that, okay, this person has a family and, and so on, and they might pay more. It's a little bit actually counterintuitive because you should be paid actually for what you deliver to the company and not like your private expenses. Yeah. I mean, it should be actually irrelevant in my opinion. But I'm describing the reality, what I hear, how companies actually decide salaries. And it's quite, like, in a way, maybe surprising, but that's how it is. So basically, young people are sometimes discriminated against because they're like, okay, you're so young, why you want so much money? Because you don't have any expenses. And older people are sometimes, like, okay, this person, but not actually too much, because if you're too old, then again, age discrimination kicks in, and then they say, okay, yeah, this person is like 50 something, probably this person is a bit too slow, maybe, and so on. So then it's really true, like, because the birthday is quite common here. You immediately can discriminate and say, oh yeah, too old, delete. It's really true, and it happens 100,000%.
I should add to my resume that I plan on having 2 kids in Switzerland and family.
Yeah, you can. Now this, of course, a little bit too much information. They wouldn't care so much, but somehow the birthday, for some historical reason, people put it. You have to see you have to decide somehow. It's not that relevant in your situation because you're like kind of exactly like in the kind of not too young, not too old, so it's not clear. So you could leave it out or put it. It's hard to say. I'm just saying that it does have some effect. I mean, and somehow more often negative than positive, unfortunately. So yeah. But then again, I tell people all the time, to put a picture, like, because of just remember you. So basically, I say, okay, birthday, maybe yes or no, you have to decide, but picture, definitely put it. But obviously, because of the picture, I can immediately estimate quite closely how old you are, right? So kind of you're disclosing it already with that, but without the picture, it's like less personal. Again, the recruiters here, they are overworked, underpaid. They have to look at 200 CVs like this. So, and then remember, who was this person? Who was that person? In your case, I would say, oh yeah, okay, this is a professional photo. You put something nice on. So like this, like kind of leaves immediately a good impression, even if I don't really like, oh yeah, like somehow decide how old or something. But it does help to remember. Yeah. So, and here it's also common. Most company, even, you know, like applicant tracking system, this is like the little bit, let's say, things that people don't understand. Like they don't put a photo, but then like if you upload it, for example, to some ATS, many applicant tracking systems, they actually use your Gmail and they pull out some profile picture from your Gmail. And it's like, then it's immediately a picture also. And sometimes like some stupid picture. I had once some person who like smoked a cigarette on the Google one, and I saw it and I'm like, okay, can you like change it to Google, because the stupid system is pulling it in. So we couldn't do any, like, of course it's like a bad impression. Like, I didn't see anything of this person, and the first icon is like a cigarette guy. Like, it's like, okay, why?
Bad impression,
And then if you're like new for the system, you don't know like the person uploaded this or how this picture appeared here. So here we have this problem of like too stupid automation, which actually, and I wrote this software company like, hey, you know what you're doing, right? And they're like, yeah, there's like, you can go to this fourth button like menu and then like change it. And like, but candidates will not.
That no one's gonna do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so this kind of things is quite bad.
I'll keep that in mind.
So exactly. So control your like Google image, like how is it called? Like Google G Suite. You can like see what is in G Suite and Gmail. What's your like set picture there? Also Twitter. So the systems, if they don't find the Gmail one, they go to the Twitter one and like scan like all the social media platforms until they pull something. It's
Is it a good thing that?
And they this is like a good thinking actually. Like the programmers build it. They like, okay, how can we make this? Because otherwise it will be like icon, and no name. So it's like too unpersonal. If you have the long list of 200 people, it's like much nicer to have the small icons, like yours, for example. Yeah. And I would, okay, this person's this person. So it's much better. But like this automation went wrong. So slightly.
Okay. Great.
Next one is birthday. Reformulate my job description to reflect the value I can bring to the companies and not just my history. Reformulate, So that always is a good thing to do. So that you kind of, on the one hand, you describe the history. So the question was, should I just lay out facts or really put an effort in writing what I added as value?
Yeah, I have an example of that in the second item, the C# developer PHC software.
Yeah.
So the first and the second item are the example of that. So the first one is a fact. The second one is a improvement I made, value that I brought. If you see. So in the first one, I say that I developed and maintained functionalities, and the second one that
PHC,
I developed.
So what is PHC? That's like the.
It's a company. Yeah.
Okay. So this is like. Then put like this, because this I couldn't, okay. Well,
okay, I see,
Or for the firms, you can put for the firms, because sometimes you would skip like this, so you can put for the firms. Okay, online ERP called CS Web. Is this relevant? Probably not. You can
probably not,
why it's like C#, the stack, that's good. You put like the stack of the system. And then, so you say the second one is the improvement, right?
Yeah.
Developed a standalone multi-language installation and deployment tool for CS Web. Okay, you're referring back to it. Okay, then you might need the name. Okay. Developed a standalone multi-language installation and deployment tool for CS Web, which greatly automated the process of having the ERP up and running Wix tool set. So it's wix.com?
No, it's the Windows, the executable to create the tooling, the Windows tooling to create executables, and create installers.
Maybe
so that, but what
Windows development.
What basically that did is get a IIS packet, service, and then create an installer for it, which you just have to install, and then it will run on your machine.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the best would be a mix of both facts and added value to.
Yeah. So for me, this both actually bullet points. Let's read on. Developed a Slack like real-time chat module for. So this is good because like everybody knows Slack, and so basically the CV is like a sales document because you cannot possibly like communicate all you did. You need like to catch their attention so that like I ask you. So I take like the 5 minutes in the interview to ask you, okay, what was that? And here, like develop a Slack, that's good because it's like somehow I can relate to this because I probably know Slack. chat module for ERP internet portal which allowed employees and clients to communicate. That's good because like it kind of it describes what the thing is doing. Last point, coded the front end of PHC's job application portal ERP module. Okay, so I like the last two kind of better than the first two because the first two is too general. So development and maintenance of functionalities. Just this is like already implied because you're like a developer. So this is clear that you do this. So I would use the space to like really say if there were any notable contributions that spark interest. So for example, like reduced API backend response time from 200 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds by introducing Redis cache or something.
Yeah.
So basically something with numbers. Also developed a standalone. So basically also what was the team? So basically because here the second one is developed a standalone multi-language installation. So was this like 1 week project or 1 year project, or was it like with 40 people, or you were 2 developers? So what exactly did you do? So this I care about because I'm interviewing you, and it's unlikely that you do this on your own. Basically, anything you have to go through your past and really think and really, what was the impressive stuff that I did that is kind of representative of my abilities. And if you can put numbers around, this even looks better and feels better. And really, you have to optimize for, okay, somebody's reading this within like 10 to 20 seconds. This person must have parsed the CV. It's like no other possibility because the recruiter's life is just filled with like every morning you have 200 to 300 new like messages with CVs attached. And you have to like really go through them quickly. Otherwise you will, and you have the other things to do too. So basically you have to optimize and understand this and optimize for it. But what you did well is like this, I mean, technologies, what you can do is, for example, you can put it like you did. I think it's good because it's like this bullet point was this technologies and maybe another one was something else, like here, JavaScript, HTML. So because you were so long here, it's good to, or not long, 1 year. So basically it's, this 1 year thing is a bit shorter than the 3 year thing, your last job. And this is good because they kind of, first of all, the last position is the most important one. So it should be the longest text because this is like your freshest experience.
Yeah.
And also like, of course it was longer. So you should also like invest, like should be able to tell more. So this you did actually really well. Some of the ways people do it, they put like, for example, here's the job title of the company, and then you put below directly technologies used and then just the technologies. You did it actually in a good way too. You just the description and technologies here. You can also like, because like many just look for the technologies just to have it first. You could move them like at the first, so technologies used and then the description. So because maybe I'm interviewing you for the .NET Core role, and then I would see this is first, and then I would really be like, let's say, wake up, from this, like, oh, I'm looking at so many CVs, and it's really like this. It's the reading experience people have with CVs. So basically, I would see this, wake up, and then like, oh, cool, and then I would really study this, and if I see something with numbers, then I would be like, this is really cool. Let me call this person. And you want this essentially. So the thing is like this is what you want. They're like, okay, I want to call this person.
Yeah, thank you. That's very insightful. Yeah, I think there are some improvements I can make on that end. Yeah.
For CVs in general, are progress bar representation of skill and languages relevant? Aside from beautifying the overall presentation of the CV, do you think they add value, or would you add a written score or something? So I think you're referring to those things at the bottom?
Yes, that's correct.
So
it's just a detail, I guess. It's it's a curiosity I have. So
I'm not. So once I had a CV which was really extremely beautified. So the person actually had like, to make it cooler, it had like,
eye-catching.
HTML tags around the job description and like his picture or their picture, like, here in the top right. So really huge. And actually this CV, because it was so big, it almost crashed my MacBook Pro because it was, I don't know. So, it was not so funny. Because then I tried to compress it, but then it like was destroyed by the compression. So it was like impossible to do anything with it. So, and then like, it was already 10 minutes gone until I like could actually read the thing, like, and this you want to avoid so much.
Wow.
And then also the person was defensive. I'm like, hey, look, it's not running on my, like, it's basically too much stuff. So basically, because you don't need, like, you know, graphical elements everywhere. And I'm telling you, the HR of this company, they will, first of all, you will crash their ATS system because, like, I know their system, and it's like first bin, and they will reject it because it's like, just, I cannot really read it. I can if I invest like 10 minutes, but we only have 10 seconds. So, and then the person was defensive about it. It's like, oh no, like other companies said it's very good and so on. So it's like, it's very, very bad. That's the worst you can do to me or to anyone who like wants to hire you. Is like the defense. It's like, no, you're wrong. It's like, yeah, okay, goodbye. Because then you cannot actually like rescue the situation anymore. Because it's like you can be because it's just such a like punch in your face if somebody's like giving you for free advice and you tell them you're wrong. It's like, but if you talk to hundreds of people, then you always have like a percentage which is like this. And then obviously with every new person you talk to, you go with this last experience also in. So you're like not the most, that's why like sometimes HR and recruiters, like you see in like comics, Dilbert comic, for example, always HR is like this evil cat, which is like, doing evil stuff and so on. And it's like, because evil stuff happens to them, then kind of back this, like the explanation. Most likely. So yeah, with with the your question was basically, okay, graphic stuff, can I use it or not? So basically, if it like really makes me super fast understand what your focus is, in your case it's like C#.net, then it's very good. With like you used it, it's kind of okay, but like it's still, for example, let's look at the human languages like English, Portuguese, Romanian.
Yeah.
With this, I would say the better choice is to use the standard A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C1, C2. So this is like this European something standard for language speaking. So this is a very clear standardized assessment ranking. And I definitely would use it for human languages. So you put, because now I don't know actually which is your native. So that's like the negative thing of the representation you chose here.
I see, correct.
So you should just put native where you are native. You put English C1, C2. If you're like super fluent, then you just put C1 or the C2. And in the other one, you put the equivalent of the, there's a Wikipedia site with the language level. So even if you don't have like a language test, you can go on Wikipedia and put in like language levels, European standard, Google that, and then you will find this A1, A2, and so on. And then you can check, because there's like different, like it's exactly said. So on A2, you can understand like in a supermarket, what somebody, or in a bar or in a restaurant. So then you can guess for yourself, basically.
Okay.
For the skills, tech skills, it's actually should be clear after reading your CV in a way. So that's actually the purpose of all this stuff. So the last 2 jobs in your case, you have like 6 years of experience. So the last 3 years should be like really, okay, if I read this, I should be really understanding what the person is really skilled and where the person spent most of the time. Yeah, for example, you can also, if you did like here, more Angular HTML stuff in this last third or something, you can put like 2 years I did this stuff, like 2 years I did this stuff, 2 years I did this. So like this, so I really know, okay, this person did in this 3 years, approximately 1 year of JavaScript and like 2 years of the plan. And then you don't need the skill stuff anymore. Because it's like distracting me in a way. This QR code I would only put if you really have a version that you give out in paper for like in some conferences or so on. Then I would have it. In the computer version, you don't really need it, because I think it's the purpose to, it's for the LinkedIn, or what is it?
It has links. Yeah.
So where is this going, this QR code?
My LinkedIn profile.
Okay. So if it's like only the digital one, I would not do this because it's distracting me. And some people might even not know what this is, like, and I don't even know where it's pointing to. So it's like several things that are like, just
could be a security problem.
Exactly, and it's like just stop it. Like it's just making me read the stuff slower. So actually, CV writing is a lot of like UX. Actually, how to be good in user experience. Yeah. So if you like, I would have a section maybe actually with LinkedIn, GitHub, Stack Overflow, every online profile, Twitter. Every profile you want to show, it makes sense to have such a section, even if there is like not so much stuff. I would still kind of put it, because it kind of shows you're like transparent with because they will Google you anyway. Like we had some managers, they're really thorough. Like we had some candidate ones, also some we like made the CV and so on. And then the hiring manager really took the time, because it is true, like in the beginning of the funnel, like HR and those people who are checking the beginning, they look like for 10 seconds, because otherwise it's not possible. But then at the later stage, when the managers look at it, they already know like somebody really like already checked the person somehow. Yeah. So then of course they take maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And then they maybe go to Twitter and so on. And if you make their job easier, then it's like can only be a plus in a way. I mean, if there's nothing in Twitter, then okay, but you can still, in my opinion, more or less put it.
I think a question, I can ask a question regarding that, because I'm not very active on social media. Like I don't have Twitter. I have a GitHub repository, but it's not very active. You know, that kind of stuff. Even if I put all those links in, would that be well, not for Twitter because I don't have one, but if I put, for example, my GitHub account, but it's not that active, would that potentially not benefit me?
I would no, because first of all, they might not even click. So they might be whatever. Second, they might click and see it's empty, and then it's whatever. Third, like for example, they might send you a coding task, and then they already have the GitHub on the CV, and then they can just use this GitHub to send you some like coding task or something. So they save this, you know, hey, do you have a GitHub? Okay, I will send you to. And then also it shows like that you might want to put something there in the future. So it's like always somehow better to somehow have it in a way, I would say, because they will not even like, they might just check, okay, what are the like, okay, this person has maybe some JavaScript or .NET repositories. I mean, they will not go into the projects because there is no time. And also it's not clear like what is a fork and what is like your own project. For this, you really need to read GitHub properly to see, okay, this is a fork, this is not a fork. But even then, like if you downloaded some repo and then uploaded it, it looks like not a fork, but actually it's like a copy of something. So basically GitHub to assess people is not reliable at all. And so that's why if you have it, then it's just, okay, this is cool. The person at least has an empty profile. So an empty profile is somehow better than no profile. Because if it's no profile, I'm asking myself the question, maybe the person doesn't even know Git, like doesn't even know how to use a version control thing.
I see.
That's even worse.
I see, thanks.
Put the certificates here. So here you have a link and so on. So I would advise actually, so below the CV, to actually, if it looks good in a way, and it actually makes sense because it's like looks like good certificates, you can like get the PDF and just merge it below the CV. And then you have all the stuff which is like certificates, even reference letters, any kind of thing that has to do with yourself and your IT career, just merge it below the CV, because people nowadays, they are so used to scrolling. And before actually I did it always like this, that I told people, okay, CV and then the extra documents next, like as a separate one. But then I noticed, no, because people have no time. They have no time to close the CV and open another PDF. So what happens is that it's better to have it merged below. Ideally, you should compress the PDF. So you can go online tools like smallpdf.com, ilovepdf.com. You have many tools, just Google like compress PDFs and like compress it such that like check it again, because sometimes the compression is destroying something, but very rarely, but it can happen. But then you see, but most of the time in 99% of cases, like the certificates and the scans, they have the same quality, but instead of 9 megabytes, it's like 1 megabyte. And then like if you have it all merged, then people can scroll and really quickly like look for something that they might find interesting and then ask you about, or like that might interest them about you. So this extra context is really good, because now I have to click, right? And it's like another click. I don't know.
Takes you to another place. Lose focus. So I think there's another practice that I've seen in some CVs, which is instead of linking or attaching the other documents, they say that certificates or references given upon request, that's like, I shouldn't do that, right?
No, you can like, for example, so reference, there's like two things. So first of all, some people, if they say reference, they are talking about like, okay, you can call this person and this person is my boss. So you can do this too. You can like put, okay, my boss at like, let's say this company, and that's the name, and that's the phone number of the person. You can just call them. Of course, before that, you should like warn the person that somebody might call. Usually people do it with like past employers, like this one, but you can also, the current one, of course, even better, because then, okay, this person already like told them they're gonna leave. So this is one thing you can do. In Switzerland, Germany too, it's very common to like request a reference letter, and you can even do it like during your like time while working.
Employment.
So this reference letter always looks sort of the same. It says, okay, this person worked here from this time from until here, until that time, or still working here, and requests like a reference letter, an intermediary reference letter, it's called. So basically, after you work somewhere for 1 year, it's like very normal to go to your boss and say, hey, can you write me a reference letter such that I have something like just in case, and so on. And of course, some might think, oh, okay, the person is job hunting or something, but actually not. I mean, it's really kind of common, so it's not immediately people think about. Maybe if you do it after 3 months, yes, but after like 1 year, 2 years, it's very common to do it. And of course, if you leave the job, then actually they have to give it. So basically in Switzerland and Germany, the law says they have to give it to you. But if you don't ask for it, they won't. So basically what happens then, if some very traditional companies here, when they have like, let's say your last 3 jobs, and if I don't see a reference letter for each of these jobs, then I assume like you kind of did something super terrible and you were fired. And of course, the reference letter is like something super bad. And so if people worked in Germany or Switzerland, then people think like this. So I tell always people, okay, if you're in Germany or Switzerland, you have to get this. I know this like here companies know that in other countries, it's uncommon, so they don't expect it. But also this kind of lowers still your chances, because it's like less information. If I have like same developers, but I have like the one worked here all the time. First of all, the person knows the culture already. And second, they have all this like reference letter stuff. And people like just, if they read it, they look just for negative things. So they don't look for something, okay, this person was the most biggest genius on the planet. No, they look for like some negative stuff. So like this person like could improve their communication. If there's like a line like this, it's really problematic. And actually here also you can like request the reference letter to change, because they cannot write something like the communication should have been better or something. And of course then it's like absurd. So it's like makes the actually reference letters a little bit of absurd, because you cannot write any negative things, but companies look for it. So it's actually an absurd thing, but a little bit in a way.
But it's a practice.
But it's a practice, and
you have to live it. Okay. Cool. Okay, great. I don't think I have any more questions. This was really insightful. Thank you very much. It was really eye-opening, and I think I'll invest in my German language course, and next year start really thinking about making the move.
Awesome.
And I guess I'll be in contact with you.
All right.
And we'll be speaking German, possibly. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.